Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today, and welcome to the Maximising Network Security for Government webinar brought to you by IQPC and NEC. It's so great to have everybody tuning in today. Welcome back to the new year. This is a very exciting webinar. It's our first webinar back for 2022, so we're very excited to kick things off with this one this year and get the ball rolling on the virtual event and webinar space. So as I said, very great to have you all tuning in today. I've got a really exciting lineup of presentations and discussions for you all today. I just thought I'd quickly run through a few housekeeping things just so that you're all aware of what is going on. So make sure you ask plenty of questions using the Q&A box today. This is your time to pick our presenters' brains and ask them any questions that you might have about what they're discussing. So use the Q&A box that's in front of you to ask a question, send us a thought, a statement, anything that comes to mind. If you want some further reading, definitely check out the digital gift bag and explore the resources available in there. They're touching on a lot more of what's discussed from today. So if you want a bit of further reading, get to know something a little bit more, have a look at there, download the material. And then also the post-event viewing will be available through the on-demand links that are sent out via your inbox and email post-event. So keep an eye out for those when we wrap up, and you'll be able to come back and rewatch anything that you might have missed throughout today. So to kick things off, I thought I would get everyone warmed up with a bit of a question for you guys. Because it's a virtual experience, we can't necessarily see you, but it doesn't mean we can't engage with you guys one-on-one. So I thought I would ask the quick question, do you have an objective to move towards safe architecture in the next 18 months? So have a think about, is it yes? Do you have objective or motivation to do that? No, you don't, or you're not 100% sure, and maybe that's why you're joining us today. So have a think about that and let us know. And we'll have a look at the results to kind of gauge where the audience sits at the moment, where your different objectives are. It'll be good to kind of get an understanding of where you guys are at. So have a think about that and select one of the three options, and then we'll have a look at the results as a group after this. So I'll give you all a few moments to do so. Give you a few more moments. I know there's a few people still to submit a response. So 10-second countdown. I won't do the countdown, but I'll let you do it in your head. All right, let's have a look at the results of this. Right, so 75% of you, most of you aren't sure if you're going to do that, which is probably why you've decided to join us today. You're probably keen on understanding a little bit more about what that is and exploring that further. So 10% of you said you are, and you do have an objective to do so, and 15% of you said you didn't. But potentially you could join the yes or the not sure after this. So we will kick off today, and I would like to introduce Pankit Mehta, who's the National Portfolio Manager for Networking at NEC. And he will be kicking things off with a bit of discussion around maximising network security and the potential that it has. So Pankit, if you'd like to make yourself known to us, feel free to jump on and join us today. It'd be great to see you. There you are.
Hey, thank you, Isaac. Thank you so much, and great introduction. Thank you so much. Hello and welcome, everyone. I'm Pankit Mehta, National Portfolio Manager for Networking at NEC Australia. It's great to see many of you joining us today. I'm just going to take you to the agenda slides. So this is our agenda. We're going to talk about the current state, the networking portfolio for NEC. We're going to talk about SD-WAN, which is software-defined networking for WAN area network. We're going to talk about SASE, which is the next level up and securing your WAN, especially around hybrid workforce and hybrid environment that is public and private clouds. And lastly, we have some time for question and answers. So many of you know that NEC has an extensive experience in monitoring and managing networks across government and enterprise organizations. But we understand and appreciate the important role networks play in supporting business activities. As organizations undertake modernization and transformation initiatives, the future state of networks is very critical. I'm sure most of you who are on this call will be at the various stages with these programs within your respective organizations. But we are still reliant on traditional network transport technologies, which often require huge capital investment and long, lengthy provisioning timeframes. For those managing these networks, visibility of what is happening within the network is at times limited, and prioritization of mission-critical applications can be challenging, which means troubleshooting and issue resolution can take a lot longer than expected. Organizations are now increasingly looking for solutions that can enable optimized connectivity to cloud-based applications and integrate secure functionality directly into their networks. Whilst doing so, it's very important to select the right partners in order to get an outcome-based result for your organization. Whilst NEC offers wide range of network services, the building blocks for today's session is mainly software-defined networking and SASE, right? So I would just take a minute of your time and run through of all the network services that NEC provides at the moment. Like I said, SD-WAN and SASE, it's obviously the topic of today's discussion, but some of the other things that we do is wireless, Wi-Fi 6, LAN as a service or software-defined LAN, network access control, which is important in securing your network and making sure that people have right amount of privileges that monitor or administer the network. We provide on-site and remote support, cloud-based networking services, and also automation and orchestration. Obviously, I can't list everything that we do on a single page of slide, but this gives a good idea to the audience on what all services that NEC provides. Like I said at the start, I won't be taking too much of your time. With that, I would pass it on to Alan. He's the Cisco cybersecurity specialist, and he would be taking you to the next part of the session. Hey, Alan.
Hey, Pankit. Thanks for that introduction, and thanks again to NEC for the opportunity to present to the audience today. As we mentioned earlier on, I'm here to speak about network security. I'm a cybersecurity sales specialist based in Sydney, and I look forward to speaking with NEC customers in the future to see how we can help them on this journey. I'll just click through to the next slide. So today, it's probably no surprise to anybody on the call that we're seeing applications moving to not just the cloud, but to multiple clouds. It's widely regarded that the vast majority of enterprises today have a multi-cloud strategy in place. They're probably using 2 to 3 private clouds in addition to 2 or more public clouds at a minimum. And while our applications today on the various devices that we use are very easy to use, they provide a very slick user interface, they often hide the complexity that resides behind that. And by that complexity, I mean, as an organization, if you're a network specialist or a security specialist in an organization, you're tasked with providing connectivity from that user's device, whether it's enterprise-owned or BYO device, to a range of applications in a range of locations hosted by a range of providers. And the users have an understandable expectation of reasonable performance of those applications so that they can effectively and efficiently carry out their daily tasks. So this the simplicity that's presented to the user is hides all this complexity. And the complexity goes beyond just the pure connectivity to providing, as I said, a consistent user experience, and also then the ability to provide security. And security is not just the ability to block threats or block access to unsanctioned destinations. It's also the ability to provide visibility into where your users are going and how threats are proliferating within an organization, and how you can then mitigate against those threats. So there's significant challenges under the hood of all of this opportunity that we see today being provided through the multi-cloud experience. Second to that, we ought to keep in mind that because of this migration to the cloud, there's less and less of a reliance on on-prem hosting of applications or private WAN or MPLS wide area networks today. Increasingly, customers are moving towards an internet-based connectivity model and using SD-WAN, using direct internet access in order to provide the users the most efficient access to those applications. And so internet connectivity and the reliability and the experience of that internet connectivity becomes critical to businesses. So from a networking standpoint, IT has been helping by deploying SD-WAN for some time now. On the left-hand side, you see a whole laundry list of Gartner analyst definitions of what an SD-WAN solution is. In summary, it comes down to things such as circuit load balancing, providing direct internet access at the branch, providing a centralized management and orchestration to really deliver efficiencies in terms of how that WAN is operated. And then through all of that, dramatically lowering the individual circuit costs when compared to traditional WAN. Looking at Cisco's SD-WAN, we go a good deal past that basic description to provide additional capabilities that, for example, really drill down on the application experience. So whether that's optimization for SaaS applications like Microsoft 365 or WebEx, or ensuring voice quality over that SD-WAN. We also provide analytics that gives the operators a lot of detail in terms of what's causing any particular niggles in the network. What is the implication of that on individual user experience from an application consumption perspective, and also a range of security capabilities that make sense regardless of where you're sitting in the network. So all these things have led to Cisco's position as a market leader across a range of metrics. We're very widely deployed, #1 market share across a range of analyst perceptions. And the kinds of benefits that customers have leveraged from SD-WAN alone are significant. Significant reductions in the cost of connectivity, the long-term cost of operations, in terms of efficiency of WAN management, the onboarding of new services. Everything gets a whole lot more effective and efficient when you've got this automation wrapper around your WAN operations. Looking at this SD-WAN, the multi-cloud aspect of SD-WAN, Cisco has delivered a range of firsts and innovations when it comes to providing users connectivity to the big name cloud operators over the past several years. And that's only helped our position in the marketplace. But it's also obviously helping fundamentally the user experience and the ability of customers to act on their business needs regardless of who their cloud providers are. We delivered through the SD-WAN solution alone in terms of the analytics, a range of analytics that really help operators get insights into how the network is running, where there may be issues that can be overcome, and what actions need to be taken to overcome those. So really reducing the time to resolve issues in the network and bringing a lot more clarity at a much greater speed to the operators of the network, which overall improves uptime and availability of the network to your users. Through our recent acquisition of ThousandEyes, we've added an additional layer of visibility here, which essentially allows us to expand that visibility past the network to user and application level through the integration of ThousandEyes. So moving forward, if we think back to the opening section of the presentation where we talked about the challenges of providing connectivity in the first place, consistently, regardless of where your users and applications are. Providing that in a way that ensures the user experience and also the security. We still at this point have not dealt with the security challenges of this migration to the cloud and multi-cloud experience. So just recapping, we talked about how the users are dispersed. 82% of workers, everybody's very familiar with this hybrid model. I'm sitting in my lounge room today presenting to you. And the vast majority of enterprises embracing this multi-cloud strategy. So this is, as I said earlier, delivering a lot of complexity that needs to be overcome. Traditionally we had this centralized headquarters network that had all of our security stack within it, and all of our users came through that, and it's very, very simple in many ways to manage. But as we've moved towards the cloud, as you see on the right-hand side, many users are bypassing that headquarters network now, and those that are, because the applications have moved from within the organization to the cloud, are facing bottlenecks and impacts to performance in terms of that application experience. So these are challenges that need to be overcome. And network and security teams are challenged to get these outcomes that we've mentioned, right? So connecting users to their applications and the data, regardless of where they are and where they're coming from, delivering this high-quality user experience, and lastly, protecting against a range of threats that are evolving on a very frequent basis. So a new approach is needed to bring, to deliver increasing efficiencies to these networking and security teams, and that's where the rest of our session comes in here. So it's no surprise, even in a world where IT budgets are often declining, that security is a top concern. And if you look at the guidance from the likes of Gartner, other analysts have different names for this, but Gartner calls it SASE, Secure Access Services Edge. What they're saying is that the efficiencies and the performance gains can be delivered through this consolidation of capabilities. So combining all of the benefits that we just talked about in SD-WAN with the combination of cloud-delivered secure web gateway, so that effectively starts to replace your traditional on-prem proxies, your CASB solutions, your cloud access security broker solutions, in addition to a software-defined perimeter or zero trust network access, firewall as a service, and DNS level protection. The consolidation of all of these things into a single service is where Gartner sees the industry going, and we're certainly not the only vendor talking about it. I do believe we're the only vendor that's as well positioned as Cisco are to deliver on this, and we'll talk about that shortly. So just drilling down on this, and just to recap, what we're saying is not just that you would consume a network as a service and security as a service from a single vendor, but that these offerings and features and capabilities are combined into a single offer in a way that's integrated for a customer's consumption, so that they can realize a range of benefits for their organization and their users. When we talk about the convergence of networking and security in this SASE model, it goes well beyond just the technology integration. So if you think about it today, or traditionally, there's been a siloed approach to how teams are built and how teams interoperate. So whether it's network operations, security operations, cloud operations, quite often they've been dealing with different systems and platforms, and what ends up happening is, especially when there's either projects to deploy new technology or issues to overcome in the operation of the environment, quite often those siloed structures lead to longer resolution times, longer project deployment times, and potentially some finger pointing and breakdowns in communication. So the convergence of this as a single solution in a SASE offering helps organizations to be more effective in how they work internally between these teams, and to get much better outcomes in terms of reducing the time to deployment, reducing the time to identify security and network operations issues, and then identifying the steps that need to be taken to overcome those. So, one of my colleagues likes to talk about this analogy, which is, in the way back in the midst of time when offices had a range of different capabilities, the photocopier, the fax machine, the dot matrix printer, and I'm definitely dating myself by even mentioning those words. The industry eventually condensed into this reality where we have a multi-function printer device that is on the floor, that is network connected and does all of these things in a much more efficient way, both from a user perspective and from an organization commercial perspective, right? It delivers a range of benefits that far outweigh the combination of features that they've brought together. So SASE is a good analogy for what we're talking about in SASE. We're delivering not just the SD-WAN, but a range of other security capabilities in addition to visibility around the application that really informs operators of that environment to deliver much better outcomes for their users. So the reality is, at the same time, that you can't go to a vendor today and buy a SASE appliance. Right? There's no single solution appliance solution today that's going to give you a SASE outcome. Right? So most customers achieving a SASE outcome is going to be a journey. Today they'll have a range of capabilities. So they may have an SD-WAN. They may be looking at a zero trust architecture. They may be looking to move off of a on-prem proxy, for example, or a firewall platform, and they're looking to condense all of these into a SASE solution over time. Whether that's with Cisco or with some other vendor, that's most likely the reality of the situation, and they will pursue those outcomes in stages, right? So the guidance that you get from Gartner, amongst others, is that organizations should look to that reality, that time frame to prosecute that progress, and look to vendors who can deliver you the best consolidation in that time frame. So consolidation gives you a range of benefits that you can put your hand on today in terms of commercial benefits, time to deploy benefits, the fact that ease of integration benefits given integrations are built in. But you also should look for flexible consumption models that allow you to consume this as a service based on a user count at a subscription term that makes sense to you and provides the flexibility to increase or decrease the user count as you so desire, and also the feature mix as you so desire. Fundamental to the delivery of a SASE architecture is we're moving to the cloud. So the capabilities delivered in a SASE architecture need to be cloud native. They need to be microservices based in order to deliver to you as an organization the effective operation of that environment. So you want to be able to scale in response to your own demand and scale in a way that is very dynamic and elastic. It doesn't require you to be subjected to lots of delays in getting access to that additional demand. So that's definitely something you're encouraged to look at. When you're engaging with vendors, look at vendors who have based their solution on a microservices-based architecture and can demonstrate that to you. On the right-hand side, we're bringing together the network, but we're also, many of these other features in this cluster of circles in the middle of the slide are security outcomes. Right? So while we're moving from a traditional WAN to direct internet access at the branch, we're introducing potentially a lot more risk into the organization by having many more connections to the internet. So there's a greater deal of focus on ensuring that we deliver the right security outcome at those branches, especially when you consider that quite often the hardware in a branch will be scaled down in terms of CPU and memory, and what that results in is reduced capability to process security outcomes on that hardware. So you need to be able to do it effectively in the cloud, and you need to be able to do it in a way that can respond dynamically and rapidly to the changing nature of threats on the internet, number one, and do so in a way that reduces false positives for you as a customer, so your organization doesn't waste time investigating things that are waste of time, essentially, in terms of false positive alerts. So when you look to vendors, you should look to vendors who can demonstrate to you their security effectiveness and their ability to protect you from ongoing threats on the internet. Second last here, global presence and peering relationships. It's almost a given, and we can probably be forgiven for assuming that all of the vendors out there will have this to some degree, but it's worth drilling down on. So if it's done right, this global presence and peering relationships will allow you as a customer and your users to experience a reduction in latency when accessing the applications that they need to use on the internet. So by that I mean, if you think back traditionally, people consider security products to be a roadblock or a speed hump in between the user and the application. And by virtue of peering relationships, we can demonstrate within Cisco, and it's something we invite you to look closely at in the pack that we're sharing after the session, is that through these peering relationships, we can dramatically reduce the hop counts, the number of routers devices that your users' traffic will go through between their user device and between SaaS applications, whether it be Microsoft 365 or Box or whatever it might be. And that reduction in latency by virtue of those peering relationships dramatically improves the user experience and the speed at which their applications are experienced to operate. And lastly, support for all devices and agents. The reality is most of our users are using a range of different devices. Today I've got my phone and my laptop from two different vendors. I can use a BYO device or I can use a Cisco provided device, and our users need to be supported regardless of what they're using. So these are significant factors we encourage all organizations to look closely at when they're looking at a SASE architecture, and when they're looking at vendors who can deliver that all in one from a single vendor. So Cisco's vision is to combine our decades-long heritage in best-in-class networking and security and our recent acquisitions and observability capabilities into a single subscription service, and to provide, in so doing, secure access to any application over any network, regardless of where the users are working in the future. So we'd like to talk about this in terms of three major themes. So the connect, converge, and control themes. So connecting, obviously, is whether you're connecting through an SD-WAN or using a remote access solution like our existing AnyConnects and Duo capabilities. On the control side, the consolidation of various security controls in Cisco Umbrella and Duo for zero trust network access, and converging that along with the observability functionality in ThousandEyes into a single subscription offer to address two significant use cases as an example. So the secure remote worker that we've all come to be familiar with through the COVID times, and the secure edge, the branch connectivity that I referred to earlier on. So this SASE architecture that I'm talking about exists today, right? So all of this networking capability that I talked about earlier on exists on the left-hand side in blue boxes. This is Cisco's SD-WAN. On the right-hand side, the majority of the green boxes delivering the security capability is available today through Cisco's Umbrella platform, and to some extent with the remote access features coming in from Duo and from AnyConnects. But fundamentally, these are integrated in a way that dramatically simplifies the deployment for a customer and delivers the security outcomes that customers need when moving to a multi-cloud direct internet access network paradigm. So, thinking about the sorts of benefits that you can realize with a Cisco SASE architecture, I talked about easy deployment. When you think about an SD-WAN and all of the orchestration and automation that comes into the deployment of an SD-WAN, with a Cisco SASE solution and the inbuilt integrations that come between Cisco's SD-WAN offerings and Umbrella, for example, you have the simplicity of being able to define a security policy once that gives you visibility across your roaming users and your on-prem users in the same place, and being able to deploy that policy across your entire network in a matter of seconds or minutes. So we have a range of very large organizations around the world, and in this part of the world even, with hundreds of thousands of users who are deployed in this model in a weekend. So that's the kind of efficiency you can get as a result of this combination and integration that's combined within the Cisco offering. Thirdly, we talked about looking for security efficacy, the ability to effectively detect threats within the organization, within the user traffic, and be able to block that. We've recently been verified through a European organization called A/B Test, and came out number one in the industry for our ability to do that, and to do that in a way that resulted in the fewest false positives, which is the smallest amount of wasted time by the organization. So when we're looking to condense, you want to come out with a security solution that is effective, and certainly the Cisco offering through Umbrella is exactly that. When I spoke earlier on about our peering relationships and why that was important, another third party, Mircom, have examined what happens when a user connects either natively through the raw internet to box.com as an example, and versus connecting through the Cisco umbrella security stack for a SASE solution, and it was shown to reduce latency by a significant amount. We're talking 70% reduction in latency for applications as a result of over a 33% reduction in hop count between the user and that application. So this combination of the security and the network offering in the Cisco SASE solution delivers that as an outcome to the user in terms of increased application responsiveness and effectiveness. So lastly, we talked earlier on about market-leading networking innovations. That's already been touched on. A consistent visibility and control across all of your users and devices, regardless of whether they're on-prem and off-prem. I think most customers struggle to get that full breadth of visibility that then informs how they define security policy and protect the organization. And with this inbuilt integration between the SD-WAN aspect and the security aspect of a Cisco SASE solution, you're getting that through a single pane of glass. You're seeing where your users are going, regardless of where they are and what they're using. And lastly, not to be ignored, the commercial flexibility and efficiencies, whether that's at procurement time, whether that's when seeking support around this solution, condensing on an organization like Cisco, where you can get all that support in one place from a market-leading support organization. Cisco TAC are very well recognized in the industry. But even at procurement time, the combination of all these solutions in a single subscription delivers a lot of value to you, the customer, and there's a range of commercial levers that can be pulled to help you there. So looking at Umbrella a little bit more closely, which delivers the security side of the SASE solution. So we have, as I said before, inbuilt integrations to your SD-WAN, whether that's a Meraki SD-WAN or a Vitella-based SD-WAN. And within a single capability, we're doing all of the DNS layer security. So we're providing a very effective way to block the worst of the worst threats on the internet through DNS, which is the fastest way to do that. In addition to providing a secure web gateway, which replaces your on-prem proxy. So we've a range of customers who come to us from more traditional on-prem proxy platforms, and we've been able to fully replicate their policies in the cloud in Cisco Umbrella through a secure web gateway feature of Umbrella. In addition to cloud-delivered firewalling, cloud access security broker capabilities like DLP, for example, and providing interactive threat intel to the security operations teams through that GUI and through APIs as well. A very effective tool, as I said, very simple to deploy when it comes to this overall SASE performance. So this is the Mircom slide I talked about earlier on. 73% reduction in latency at a peak at Frankfurt, Germany, as a result of reducing hop count by 33%. It's almost counterintuitive that adding a security capability in the path between a user and a cloud app would have such a dramatic impact, but it's worth looking at this report to see how we do that. Efficacy testing, so this is the A/B test results comparing Cisco Umbrella with some of our competitors in the industry, talking about over 3,000 tests that A/B tests defined themselves and performed themselves. So we provided the product, and you'll note that we're more effective by a significant margin in detecting threats and in doing so in a way that dramatically reduces the false positive count. So it's a win-win for customers overall Cisco Umbrella when you're using this solution. So lastly, not to be ignored, through this theme of efficiency, like the combination of multiple capabilities in a single place to provide an efficient solution to operate and an efficient capability for a user to experience. We've gone further than just the networking and security to also condense on the endpoint the combination of some very significant capabilities that we have today. So AnyConnects, many of you may be familiar with from a remote access heritage. It's been around for many years. It's a modular endpoint capability. We're adding We already have added umbrella capabilities to that. We're adding AMP, the secure endpoint capability, and our duo zero trust network access into a single secure endpoint. That will simplify greatly the deployment of these capabilities, the integration of these capabilities, and the ability for users to be protected when they're on and off the network in a way that makes the operation of the environment much simpler for organizations. So just want to touch again on the major use cases for SASE. So we talked about secure remote worker, the ability to provide a seamless connection to applications and their data wherever a user or those applications are, and regardless of whatever network connectivity is being used. To secure access to that internet and the cloud apps, and the ability to authenticate users and ensure that the device that they're using is sufficiently healthy to provide them privileges to access that application. And then lastly, to deliver the best connectivity and application experience for those remote workers. So the combination of the solutions we just talked about deliver those to our customers today. On the secure edge side of things, going through the SD-WAN, the same teams apply again. And we invite customers to explore trials of all these capabilities so they can see for themselves just exactly how effective this is. So getting back to the slide earlier where I talked about the fact that for most customers, prosecuting a SASE architecture is going to be a journey, right? So we really encourage customers to look at how you can consume SASE in your own way, right? So thinking about the themes of connecting. How do you connect effectively your users to their applications? How do you provide visibility and enforce control over those users and applications in a way that maximizes security? And how do you converge all of that, both from a deployment perspective and from a procurement perspective, into an effective solution for you as an organization? It really comes down to building blocks that will be a combination of perhaps your current environment and your stages of roadmap of development, whether that be your trust objective or whether it be a proxy replacement objective. You can, with a single vendor like Cisco, you can add those capabilities incrementally, and as you go along, realize incremental benefits, from an operations and a commercial perspective at the same time. So that's all from me today. I do encourage you, as I said, to look at talk to NEC about how you can access free trials of the capabilities we talked about here, or get introduced to how NEC can help you run workshops to further explore the capabilities as well. So really thanks again to NEC for the opportunity to speak today. I welcome any questions that you guys have got. Thank you.
Hey, Isaac, I think you're on mute.
That's slightly better.
Yes, I can hear you now. Great.
Now, is that better?
Yeah, Isaac, I can hear you.
Okay, great. Awesome. Sorry about that. So, Pankit, did you want to jump on? I know that you have a couple of things that you may want to ask Alan while you guys are on the topic quickly.
Yeah, Alan, I think great session, first of all. I mean, it did give me a lot of insight into, why we need a solution which, a SASE solution that sort of helps secure the networks and hybrid workforce. So that's great insight. Thank you so much. But I had a question. So at the start of the session, I was touching a bit on the customer might have had already made some journey in software-defined networking. So they may already have a SD-WAN device, not necessarily from Cisco, but would we be able to have a Cisco solution retrofitted into an environment which is like a bit of mix in nature?
Thank you. That's a good question. And I really get back to what I was saying here, and if I can just share the slide and show my experience of this platform. Really, it's going to be a journey for every customer, right? So the reality is, today, not every customer is going to be condensed on a single vendor. They may have, as you said, a different SD-WAN. Certainly, the capabilities in Umbrella can be deployed across any other SD-WAN provider, but what you're going to miss out is some of the advantages of the integrations that are native to the Cisco combination, right? So other SD-WAN providers may or may not have the same level of capability when it comes to those integrations. Certainly, when you look at the other slides I had around Cisco's innovation, they may not all be there. But from a basic, can you deploy security policy to an SD-WAN using Cisco Umbrella? Yes, you can. And our expectation is that over time, you'll look to improve the performance and the capability and the value that you're getting out of your SASE solution, either by speaking to your other SD-WAN vendor about how they can improve their situation, or potentially by moving to Cisco at some point in the future. But certainly, that's the reality. Whether we're talking about SD-WAN or whether we're talking about proxy, for example, we have a lot of customers out there today who use other proxy providers, and they may come to Cisco initially for, let's say, the SD-WAN and for DNS security, and then over time move off of just those and then start to add the proxy capability. So that journey theme is really strong in the industry today. It's something that we invite customers to have a discussion about in terms of how they can consume the SASE architecture on a piece-by-piece basis. I hope that helps.
All right. Thank you so much. That's the only question I had, Isaac.
Wonderful. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Alan, for joining us today and sharing that presentation with us. It was great to have you on and sharing your insights with us. And thank you, Pankit, for introducing him and introducing the start of the presentation as well with that question as well. So thanks so much to both of you. Really appreciate having you both on. So what we might do next, everyone, is ask another question. I'd love to get your thoughts on the following. So do you have gaps in the ability to secure hybrid workforce through on-prem security solutions? So is it yes, is it no, or is it not sure? While you answer that, I might get our next presenter to join us, turn his camera and microphone on, Naresh Bala. He will be joining us now for a bit of a fireside chat. I've got some questions for him today. Naresh is a cybersecurity specialist. He's done work over a number of years in different government department, government-owned agencies as well. So Naresh is joining us, but let's have a look at these results. I'll give you all a few moments to vote in this poll, and then we'll move on to the next part of the webinar. So do you have gaps in the ability to secure hybrid workforce through on-prem security solutions? Yes, no, or not sure? Let us know. I'll have a look at the results in about 5 seconds. So I'll give you a couple of seconds and then we'll have a look. All right, let's have a look at these results. So it's relatively split between the yes and the no's down the middle. But 66% of you aren't sure, so that's really interesting, but it's also good to note. And I'm sure the majority of those people also voted not sure in our first question as well. So it's good that there's a bit of uncertainty there because hopefully we can provide some answers to you today. So I would like to introduce, as I said before, Naresh Bala, who's a cybersecurity specialist who's done a number of work contractually with Victorian State Government, and he's joining us today. We're going to be talking through maximising network security strategy through simplifying cloud journey and improving security objectives. So hi Naresh, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, I begin today to acknowledging the traditional custodian of the land on which we meet today and pay my respect to their elder past and present and emerging. And also, I pay my respect to my elders past, present, and emerging. Isaac, it's great to be with you. As my name is Naresh Bala, and I have almost 20 years of experience in IT audit, internal audit, assurance, external audit, risk management, compliance, and governance. More recently, I have been working as a cybersecurity specialist, providing services and advice in the area of governance, risk, and compliance. I have diversified experience working in federal and state government working environment, as well as private and public enterprise, IT consulting, and a firm of chartered accountants. And just to give my time to community, I'm also a volunteer with the Australian Conservation Foundation, Neighbourhood Watch, and YMCA. Thank you.
Fabulous. Thank you so much for that introduction of yourself and sharing that with us. So it's really great to have you on. You obviously have a boatload of experience in this space. So what I wanted to ask you, just to kick things off for our discussion today, is can you tell us a little bit about your journey with network security and share some insights into what you've experienced over the past 12 to 18 months throughout your work?
Sure. My journey with the network security is in relation to risk compliance and governance. That is basically providing advice and consulting services by participating and reviewing architectural and security design document on various application and platform in collaborating cloud services, particularly Microsoft Azure, AWS, MuleSoft, ServiceNow, and Splunk. My insight and experience is, first of all, to protect information and data, organization has to carefully design their infrastructure and network security. Basically implementing network security controls, that plays an important part, important role in this respect. As a guide, for example, as per Information Security Manual Guidance issued by Australian Cybersecurity Centre, there are almost 30 controls on network design and configuration. A couple of them, if I may say, are network documentation include a should include a high-level network diagram showing all connection into the network, a logical network diagram showing all network devices, critical services and services, and configuration of all network devices. The second is a network device register is maintained on a regular basis and audited. Default accounts for network devices are disabled, renamed, or have their passphrase changed. So, just out of 30, these three there are challenges even to meet those ones. So, in a summary, in the recent past, I have been working on various cybersecurity projects and programs, such as the development, deployment of various cloud services, managed services, elements across application and platforms, conducting third-party assurance and assessments, developing a security strategy, assurance architecture design, assessing cybersecurity for identity and access management for development, deployment and implementation phase, reviewing, developing, designing, documenting organization policies, standards, and procedures, engaging with internal and external stakeholders, implementing a technical strategical control with various around automation of PAM, threat intelligence, vulnerability management, and basically uplifting the security posture. For IRAP assessment and external audit activities while conducting self-assessment, I have completed statement of applicability, system security plans of the various component of application, platform, and systems. Also contributed to design document of the various platform hosted on Microsoft Azure, MuleSoft, and AWS. Basically, implementing information security manual controls and essential aids. A thorough consideration was also given to various standards and frameworks such as NIST, SAPSA, PCI DSS, COBIT, VPDSS, VPDSF, PDSP, SSPs, and ISO 27001 and 31000.
Wonderful. So moving forward from that, and obviously we've kind of experienced over the last 12 to 18 months that the landscape for cyber threats has expanded exponentially, particularly over the last 18 months. So can you explain to us how that has impacted / accelerated network security objectives, particularly within the public sector?
Great. Yeah, it's a great question. As you mentioned, in the recent time, cyber threat has extended exponentially, and the organization has been in line now because of their information and data has been significantly compromised. Therefore, the current cyber threat may have been impacted network security objective among various sectors, particularly among government sector. And nowadays, compliance, risk, and governance activities among private, public, and government sectors are on the rise. The objective to protect personal and sensitive information and the data is almost essential for many organizations. Subsequently, implementing network security controls are the main objective, and the organization are working very hard and spending significant amount of time and budget in developing and implementing network security controls, for example, implementing firewall rules, multi-factor authentication, regularly conducting penetration testing, scanning, implementing password policy and procedure, reviewing and implementing data breach and incident management, thinking of zero trust security, and the list may go on. Basically protecting personal and sensitive information and data to protect application, platform, and systems.
Wonderful. So thank you for sharing that, and that's really interesting that you've kind of noted those things there. So we want to look at like software-defined networking as well. So what is your experience with software-defined networking, and do you have any insights to share with our audience about this kind of networking and how it can support improving cybersecurity objectives?
Yes, we know that traditionally we configure each and every or one device at a time. The approach may take a long time. However, software-defined network, which also called SDN, may be a better option and can help us out very well because we can use applications that express our intent for network behavior. Then, such application can communicate with SDN controller. That controller then send appropriate command out of network devices to all at once. In a large enterprises, there could be hundreds of thousands of network devices. Rather than configuring individual devices, SDN controller can be added in the mix. This may means that this SDN controller is in charge of communication with all of the devices. Technically speaking, some network devices may already be designed with SDN in mind, and they also support the protocol design for SDN communication, that is open flow. SDN controller can use a secure shell to open up communication. Bear in mind, using latest version of secure shell can be a great network security, and it can support improving cybersecurity objective to secure network. It all depends on each organization, how their network is designed to support software-defined networking. All it is required is a basic understanding of some of the component that makes software defining network. It is a very technical discussion and can be discussed with individual organization where SDN can be can support improving cybersecurity objective. It is a very subjective topic. I hope it is of some help to our listeners. Thank you.
Absolutely, and no, that's all good. Thank you. So, we want to discuss as well establishing visibility across networks. So, what can you tell us about establishing visibility across all networks, and how have you overcome challenges in regard to doing that?
It's a great question to answer. It is a tough question to answer as well, but I will try my best, right? An organization might need to consider network visibility model, because nowadays we are more commonly working from environment outside of our local business network. We need a way to have a visibility into what's going on with these remote devices. I am familiar with Cisco Anytime Network Visibility Model. And there are always challenges, challenges in relation to endpoint protection and securing accesses. There are various ways to overcome such challenges by implementing such as anti-malware, antivirus, retropestic, sorry, security, dynamic life analysis, endpoint and model device management, basically by regularly conducting asset inventory, endpoint posture assessment, and patching, implementing basically multi-factor authentication. Another one is profiling, web authentication, domain name system tunneling. Last but not the least, you should have a HTTPS on every flow of the data. So that's my insight and some ideas. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. So some of our audience members might be looking to, or may have started the process of moving to SaaS application to the public cloud to improve their user experience and identify new technologies to support their cloud presence. So can you tell us about best practice in doing this? Do you have recommendations to share with our audience about doing so?
Yes, I can throw some points. At any point, given point in time, moving software as a service to public cloud is an individual decision that an organization has to make. Again, to give a best user experience, it all depends on the organization's infrastructure and or their network design that support the application, software, or platform. And this is also depends on what product and services an organization has to offer so that the user have improved and then the best experience. Moving to public cloud, a cloud migration strategy may be required. But before moving to public cloud, the main consideration may include the organization need to know why they are moving or adopting a particular software as a service application, explain the business justification behind the investment that they are making. Will there be a acceptable service level agreement on offer from a service provider perspective? Is service provider offer financially backed service level agreement? So consider what impact will the application have on the organization internal bandwidth? What are the domain name system called DNS requirements for the application, and are those requirements can cause some or any problem with a particular cloud service provider that your organization is choosing or going to choose? Also consider an alternative software as a service provider that offer a similar, adoptable and or a compelling solution for your organization. Does your proposed solution align well with the business model and your corporate culture as well? And then finally consider what's your exit strategy is, just in case things cannot work out very well. So these are some of the indication I can give it to them.
Certainly, yeah, thank you. So just to wrap things up for today, obviously you've been great so far with answering my hot seat of questions, so appreciate that. But do you have any final pieces of advice for our audience about maximizing their network security and overall security objectives?
Yes, not a problem. In secure, I have a couple of advices. In securing in securing the network, there are most important function that information security perform is an enterprise, that is confidentiality, integrity, and availability. In a design phase of the network security, these should be considered. Vulnerability management system and security information and event management should also be considered. Again, maximizing network security is a subjective topic. It depends on the organization's particular network security requirements. However, in any case, to maximize network security, my advice would be
to implement at least essential 8 requirements. Those are application whitelisting and patching, configure Microsoft Office macro setting, user application hardening, restrict administrative privileges, patch operating systems, implement multi-factor authentication, and conduct daily backups. To implement Essential 8 guidelines, actually guidelines are available on Australian Cybersecurity Centre website, or maybe call us and we will be more than happy to help secure your network by implementing them. So finally, bear in mind, security is all about people, process, and technology. Thank you.
Absolutely, and I think that was also said at the very beginning of today as well. It all comes down to the security element of everything comes down to technology, the processes, the people, and that was also discussed previously. So thank you so much, Naresh, for joining us and sharing your insights with us about your work, particularly within the public sector. It was great to have you along, so thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Isaac. It's a pleasure to be with you. I hope our listeners will get some valuable feedback from us on some couple of points, and there's plenty to take away. Thank you very much for your time and inviting me today.
No problem. Thank you. So everybody, thank you so much for joining us. I've got one more question that I'd love to ask our audience today, just to wrap things up and conclude today's webinar. Can you see any benefit consolidating into a single subscription? So if you can, say yes. If you can't, say no. And if you don't know, say you don't know. But let us know in the poll, the final poll today, and then we'll wrap things up for the day. But definitely have a look at those, and we'll take a look at the results in just a second. And I appreciate everyone for tuning in and getting involved with our polling questions today. It's always great to get an understanding of the audience, particularly because we can't see you in person. We can't kind of ask you those questions in person like physical event, but we can definitely do it through this engagement. So have a look, and we'll have a look at these results next. So can you see any benefit to consolidating multiple networking and security capabilities into a single subscription? So I'll give you guys a few more seconds and then we'll have a look at that. Right, so let's have a look at these results. So 54.5% of you say that you can, which is actually the majority of you. No one said no, which is good. And 45.5% of you said you aren't sure, but it's good to see the majority of people see the benefit of a single subscription there. So that's great. So with that being said, I'd just like to thank you for attending today, and thank you for tuning in and listening to our wonderful presenters. I'd like to thank our presenters for joining us as well and sharing their insights and experiences with you all. It was great to have them along, and I hope that you've all taken something away from this that you can now apply back to your own organisation. With that being said, on-demand links will be sent out to your inboxes post-event, so you'll be able to come back and rewatch anything that you might have missed. Have a look at the things that you might have missed, take some extra notes, have your colleagues join in and listen in as well. Make sure you check out the resources in the digital gift bag. I know some people have asked if the slides are made available in the gift bag. They're not available directly in the gift bag, but we will coordinate with the presenter if this is something that we can share with our audience. So if we can we'll send those out to those who'd like them, but just let us know and we can coordinate that afterwards. But we'll definitely check and see if that's okay first before we do so. But with that being said, thank you everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you all have a great week, a great weekend, and we hope to see you at future upcoming webinars and events that we have throughout the year. We have a number of them coming up, so keep an eye out for those. But have a great weekend.